I usually go to bed around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So I regretted sacrificing sleep for this debate. There was very little substance to the debate. I'm a public policy wonk, so I understand my bar is relatively high for substance. But I think even someone who doesn't follow public policy like I do wanted to hear what each candidate's plan was for improving the quality of life for them and their community over the next 4 years, and there just wasn't much to consider. So it was disappointing. That was my general impression. Instead, what we had to watch was behavior that, personally I would reprimand my daughter for.
Yeah, and debates, as you and I both know, are generally not really great for getting at a whole lot of detailed substance anyway. This was crank it up to 10. So if there was a moment, we'll start with President Trump, where he was able to talk policy in some ways. Was there anything he got out that you found of value in any meaningful way?
That's a tough one. I thought he did a good job of appealing to his base and riling them up, doing what we've seen him do for the past several years, even when he was running for his last term. And I thought he did a good job strategically of preventing Biden from appealing to undecided voters, which is what needed to happen last night. But with all those interruptions and attacks, I think it was really hard for Biden to get airtime to relay his platform and appeal to those undecided. So that's what I would say was the high point for President Trump last night.
President Biden, Vice President Biden, a lot of people I've seen talking about the moment at the end where he defended his late son, Beau. And that's obviously not a policy point of any kind. That's rhetoric and that's emotion. Is there anything else for the former vice president that you see that could be substantive with people that connected on policy or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you brought that point up, because I thought that was one of the bright spots for the evening, and a place where Biden was not only vulnerable, which I think people like to see, but also talked about an important topic, which is drug use and the stigma that I thought President Trump was placing on his son for having a drug problem, instead of talking about the fact that, especially exacerbated by COVID-19, that opioid use is up. This is something that we've researched here with the state of Michigan. We've had a huge surge in opioid overdose related ER visits between April and May. They're up 42%. And so we need to be focusing on this very important issue and how we're going to address this issue instead of stigmatizing it. And so I thought that was a really bright moment for Biden to be able to say, yes, he's had this issue, he's working on it, or he's worked on it, and I'm proud of him for that.
Okay. One moment where a very legitimate question, and because Leader Schumer brought this up, was the idea of court packing, expanding the Supreme Court. And Democrats have been getting this question. I had an interview with Senator Peters a week ago, and I asked him that very question and largely avoided it. Former Vice President Biden got that very direct policy-related question last night. How do you think he did in addressing it?
Well, I think what he should have done was talked more about the Supreme Court and their ability to strike down the Affordable Care Act. If the coronavirus is considered a pre-existing condition, there's going to be a lot of power given to states in determining that. So if the Affordable Care Act is toppled, it could be up to Michigan to choose whether to protect the 122,000 plus COVID-19 patients in the state from discrimination and higher insurance premiums or not. So that was a point that I think that both candidates could have spoken to more about. I think healthcare is such an important topic, and while Biden did talk about Obamacare, and that was another bright point where there was some policy discussed, as where Trump really didn't provide a lot of detail about his healthcare policies. That was something that I was hoping to see more of and didn't.
Moving forward, is there a way? I've been watching these debates for a long time. I'm sure you have as well. how can we make these more effective and more substantive and just more useful, would you think, or would you like to see moving forward, either in the short term with the next two debates or in future cycles?
I think I agree that it is hard to get substance across, but this was a really low moment. In other debates, you are able to get at least uh, high level topics, such as when when Vice President was talking about climate change, which wasn't something that we had expected to be discussed last night, but was. And he had very specific policy proposals that don't get into the level of detail of implementation, but talk about energy use and energy waste reduction and more renewable energies, less reliance on fossil fuels. So while I think the moderator could have done a better job of early on in the debate reminding particularly President Trump about what he agreed to, about 2 minutes of uninterrupted time to discuss, I think it could have been moderated better. But this debate was, and I think a lot of people have talked about it, was the worst debate that we've had in this country. It was a very low moment.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I did not bring this up. It was not policy, but when the president was asked about denouncing white supremacists, he's been asked this in the past, and I don't think it's unfair to say that it's like pulling teeth to get him to criticize this sector of our population. He flatly did not. I suppose, just as someone who works in public policy and looks at numbers, what was your reaction in that moment, and what do you think the fallout would be, if anything, if there even is a fallout to it?
Yeah, not acknowledging that white supremacy and structural racism is alive and well in this country is, I don't even have words for it. It was really disappointing. The fact is that decision makers in this country and those with the power to make and enforce the rules we live by are in large part white. And whether intentionally or not, those rules and policies are many times carried out in a way that benefits white people and disadvantages people of color. And at Public Sector Consultants, we talk about this a lot, and we work really hard to have that lens on our policy work and to try and change policy so that it benefits all people. And so I marked that up as a very low point for Trump in the debate yesterday.